Hey everybody, hope everybody is well. A bit of a later start than I had anticipated, but phew, man, what a busy freaking day. Hey everybody, welcome. A bit of a later start than I anticipated, but wow, what an amazing freaking day. And if you happen to hear me say that twice, there is a reason, because there's kind of a gap of roughly 5 seconds between when I see my face on here and then when I see the sign that says go live, right? So here, live, right? At any rate, hope everybody is well. This episode is brought to you by the initials A, B, O, R, M, 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 B, L, V, S, and S. That's right. Now you'll say, what? And I will say yes. Basically, it goes like this. The Raiders are at the beginning or the end of their poor era. You heard me correctly. Remember that statement I made that the stadium is $619 million under what it needs to be in terms of sponsorship revenues? Well, that problem is still existing. The good news is they're adding sponsors. The even better news is that where they need to be aside in terms of total revenues, and I'm more confident that they'll get there if they just take their time in building this thing than I was in the past, all right? I'm more confident, all right? I will say this. The amount of money that the Raiders are in command of is for the team unprecedented. Unprecedented. Oh, and that reminds me, I forgot to add this initial. JJ. None of this would have been possible had it not been for the behest of Jerry Jones. Jerry Jones is the person who engineered the relocation process that's in motion. Jerry Jones is the person that has established legacy. And I've said this before, and I'll say it again, he's a heck of an entrepreneur. I don't always agree with what he does, but I admire what he does, all right? Big difference. Competing ideas, I can hold them in my head at the same time. The Raiders, because of the purchases for luxury boxes, because of the signing of Cox as a sponsor, because of the announcement of other sponsorships to come, and I certainly hope that they get one that's $500 million. If you take all of that, and I don't know where they are in terms of selling luxury boxes, it's giving them enough projected revenue to be in a position to make big deals comfortably. So right now the Raiders have two things primarily they never had before. First, Mike Mayock, and second, money. And Mike Mayock, with a boatload of cash to spend, makes for a pretty lethal combination in football, okay? It just does. And so out of that you see Antonio Brown becoming a Raider, which completely changed the free agent landscape for the Raiders, because if you remember Ndamukong Suh, he boarded the plane, did not even land the plane in Oakland, get off and visit the practice field, unlike somebody reported, or the headquarters, unlike somebody reported, right? He never saw the building. He went straight to LA. And there was a reason for that, because at the time, a year ago, funny how things can change in over just a year, right? Ndamukong thought, they can't afford me. Well, different story now, okay? Different story now. The Raiders have the money today that they didn't have last year or in their history. And part of it is the larger than ever salary cap, $188 million. But then, of course, the other part of it are the aforementioned sponsors that they're signing up for these stadium deals and what they see down the pipe. The Raiders becoming more liquid. Now, it doesn't mean that once the stadium is built and the expenses come in, that they'll be totally out of it. But again, if the gambling aspect of this entire deal takes off the way that I think it will, the Raiders will become, in about 7 years, one of the wealthiest franchises in sport. Okay? If they do this right. The point that I'm making is the Raiders are in a position to do this right. Okay? Now, could they have done this in Oakland? At the time, the way Mark Davis and Mark Bedane looked at it, no, because there were legal changes that occurred on the way to here that they didn't anticipate. Okay? Sheldon Adelson wanted the Raiders for his own purposes, in part to increase tourism, because Adelson, a genius in business as well, saw the handwriting on the wall with respect to Las Vegas visitation and how it was going to impact his bottom line in terms of gambling in the United States, and had already made inroads into China, Macau, was starting into Japan, and thought, hey, you know what? Let's get a pro football team in here. Let's build around it, and let's build a sports nexus here. And then add the gambling component, all right? So, look, what I'm most jealous about is that wave of business activity wasn't focused on Oakland. It could have been. So that's why some of you have been upset that I wasn't like, oh, you're totally against it. Well, look, as a business person, myself, and as a person who has loved Las Vegas, you know, for much longer than this started, and also a media person, it's kind of caught in the middle. It's fun to watch. And everyone, if you're in business, you have to carve out your piece. A fan who does something else to make their money, all right? I can understand if you are bowing out, say you don't want to deal with it. I completely understand. But for those of us whose livelihood comes from this, you have to carve out your piece. Look at what Darren Ravel did. Darren saw the handwriting on the wall with respect to gambling. Said, hey, you know what? I'm out of here, ESPN. I'm going to action sports. All right? Why? Because, hey, they focus on gambling. Everyone's trying to carve out their piece. I'm being honest with you about where things are headed here. But for the Raiders and the subject of free agency tonight, to which you're saying, get on with it, Zinni. It means the Raiders have a flexibility that they've never had before. And they have a guy who's the general manager who's willing to spend that money. And he's he's trying to build a better team, but he's doing it carefully. Notice that where Mike Mayock directs the spending of money, of course with approval of Davis and Bedane and Gruden, and of course, especially Gruden, it's a team, okay, and everything, all right? Mr. Ramos says something about a report by ESPN that I would love to know more about, because I'll get to that in a second. But my point regarding Mayock is that Mayock is saying, hey, look, I want to have some tent poles here and a tent pole here, and I want to say to the NFL, we're open for business and free agency. We're open to deal. We're trying to build a combination of, if we're going to bring in players from other teams, they got to be really, really good. Guys that other guys will turn around and look up to. That's what Trent Brown and Antonio Brown bring to the Raiders. These are leaders, not just highly paid. They're true leaders, true experts at their craft, all right? So it's a great day to be a Raiders fan. It really is. You know? All it takes now is Mark Davis bringing the Oakland Raiders back to Oakland for 1 or 2 more years to have some fun before they take off to Vegas. You know, do it right. And then along the way, being nice to everybody and saying, hey, I'm glad you're with us, pat everybody on the back. Mark goes over to Lauren, and longtime Raider fan with a patch, you know, and gives him a hug for all of his service and, you know, maybe a great dinner and everything else. Just be nice. Be nice, okay? So my point is, no, let me get to your comments and everything else, because, all right. Hey, Muhammad, how you doing? Cowboy Rush says, just got on, what's up, the update on the lease? The update on the lease is that if this thing goes through, and I hope it does, that if I type Coliseum JPA as I do, then Coliseum JPA meetings I'm going to the list for the meetings. And then at the bottom, I should see it agendized by 8 o'clock tomorrow morning. That's what I was told, all right? Now, I'm scrolling down because right now, this is what I see right now on the website of Joint Powers Authority, all right? March 6th, that was the last meeting. If this goes through, I expect a new agenda to be posted here at 8 o'clock tomorrow morning, mentioning the deal, all right? I haven't seen that yet. I was told that they are still, you know, discussing terms. Now, whether or not, now, in general, it's good that they're talking at all. But how it's going to come out, I'll just have to wait and see, you know. My question is, if the Raiders don't think this is going to work, where the hell are they going to go? And what is that issue that's such a sticking point, all right? So, there's your update. Melvin Lovejoy, haven't seen you in a while. Lovejoy says, Rams safety joiner, two safeties under 5'10", crazy. Manu Flo, how you doing? Cowboy Rush says, Jerry Jones is the reason why the NFL is in Los Angeles and Las Vegas. That is 1,000,000% correct. Cowboy Wrestler says, Sue saw money in LA. That is also 1,000,000% correct. Muhammad says, Sue saw Super Bowl opportunities with the Rams. I think that came with the pairing of personnel he looked at and felt, you know, what happened. That there was a good percentage chance that would happen. And he was right. Didn't win, though. I'm just ripping him. But anyway, all right. Taste 813 says, it's so refreshing to see Antonio Brown want to be a Raider. Yeah, it is. Any news lonely LeVeon? Other than the Raiders being in the conversation, none. Although you should take that seriously. M-Bite says, Le'Veon Bell will follow suit. M-Bite says, Woodson or defensive back coach. What are you saying? Is that a wish fulfillment or what? Because, Charles, I have come to find that my viewers don't tend to, you know, there's a difference. The longtime viewers really do come in, all right, and bring some great stuff. But as far as, you know, the news that Charles Woodson is a Raiders defensive backs coach, that's not happening. He's not. Hey, everybody, welcome to Zenny62. Thank you. I'm glad you're here. I'm reading comments as they come along. Please make your comments sensible and to the point. Otherwise, you will be automatically, not by me, but by the algorithm that is installed and I have set, your comment will be automatically deleted. Okay? So, I have figured out a way to algorithmically represent what a Zenster is. So if you can play that, you can play within the rules, you will shine, as many of the folks here do. Now, is there any money left to get Le'Veon Bell? Yes, there is, actually, but the question is, how much does he want? All right? But, yeah, I mean, would they be breaking, the question is, do they want to spend that remaining money in that way? That's the question, in terms of what a guaranteed amount would be. And, yeah, so we'll have to see there. Mr. Ramos says, you know what? Something else that I just thought about is this, stupid me. And that's this, all right? It just so happens that we have, I'm trying to see if Le'Veon Bell's statement, Le'Veon Bell's agent, Adisa Bakari, has made any comments regarding the Raiders. And let's see here. And because that was Adisa Bakari's idea to have Bell sit out. So, no, I don't see anything just yet. God, it'd be cool to get him on the show. All right. We've got Mr. Rainbow says, any truth to the report by ESPN that Davis has real cash flow problems? I haven't heard, look, I haven't heard anything from ESPN about that. Now, I'm going to Google right now. I'm typing Mark Davis cash flow, all right, just to see, because I haven't seen that. And this is from the big lead in Chris Mortensen, all right? Okay, this is a good lead. This comes from, apparently the big lead is quoting something that Chris Mortensen put out, and it says that suggests that Raiders won't be adding LeVeon Bell because of cash flow issues, all right? So let me read this, because the way that I read where the Raiders are headed, they're in a better, how do I express this? They're in a better relative cash flow position than they were last year. What I mean by that is this. Even though overall the Raiders are fooling around with a position where they would take a loss in the stadium, okay? If they don't get $1 billion in sponsorships, they need $1 billion, all right? If they don't get that, and they don't get that, and they really need to have that, and then they need to make sure the luxury box money is coming in. But even with that, the relative total amount of money they have or will have projected is greater than they had last year or any other period in their history. So the problem with the position is it gives the Raiders an opportunity, especially if they decide that they're going to have contracts that could give them dead money in the future, which is the issue, all right? If they're playing that game, then they very well may land Le'Veon Bell. That's a different game than Reggie McKenzie wanted to play. Remember, Reggie McKenzie signed players with the idea that the Raiders had money to pay for those players, so you didn't have the potential for a dead money contract. If Mark Davis and Reggie McKenzie had this argument saying, hey, look, where Mark is saying, hey, look, I want you to spend now, and McKenzie saying you can't spend now because you have a cash flow problem, and so Davis fires, I'm speculating, and so Davis fires McKenzie on that basis, and then brings in Mayock, who then takes them back to the same type of financial practice that got them into trouble before. If that's the case, and yet the Raiders have more money to play with, yeah, you're going to see these big deals. The question is, will these wind up in just another pool of new dead money contract problems in the future? That could happen, all right? That could happen. Now, having said that, what I was pointed to is this. It's on the big lead, all right? It's this. Chris Mortensen suggests Raiders won't be adding Le'Veon Bell because of cash flow issues, all right? Now, says the Raiders have a ton of salary cap space, as you and I know, and have made the biggest splashes so far this offseason. This team still has the cap space for more moves, but according to Chris Mortensen, he doesn't expect them to be in on Bell because of cold, hard cash. And so apparently Chris Mortensen put out a video basically saying the Raiders are cash poor and can't afford to sign former Steelers running back Le'Veon Bell due to real cash issues, not salary cap issues. And that's something that I have said before. I said last year the Raiders had real cash flow issues that caused them to boot Amari Cooper and Khalil Mack. And those specific cash flow problems came from the fact that Las Vegas Stadium, and I don't think Chris Mortensen mentioned this, but let me see here. I'm going to, wait, hold on a second. That Las Vegas, I'm trying to cue this up so you can hear it as well. But Las Vegas Stadium's consultants had promised roughly double the amount of pay-go money compared to what actually came in. All right, and then you had some people people running around the internet saying, "Oh, that's not true. That's not true. That's no." Well, it is true. You know, and it's not a good idea to go around spreading lies. You know, but because all the person has to do is math. So the internet, folks. It's the internet, folks. You know what I mean? Just all you have to do is the homework. All right, now going back to just find the data and use it. Right here. Okay, this is it.
I do not expect them to be in the LeVeon Bell sweepstakes, even though many people disagree with that point of view.
You're right, and I'm one of the people who disagrees with that point of view because of the sponsorships that the Raiders have signed up. All right, and that's the reason I disagree with the point of view. I think Chris is looking at it the wrong way. He needs to look at projected cash flow from the stadium versus expenses. If he looks at it that way, then yeah, overall the Raiders do have a problem. But if the Raiders go to a strategy of dead money contracts, combined with the money they're getting in now, combined with this desire to bring a Super Bowl home, to put stars out there that stand a better chance of attracting more sponsors for the Las Vegas effort. That's what this is all about, folks, okay? When you take all that together, it means the Raiders are willing to roll the dice. Now, let me see what he has to say here.
And I think it's because of the cash. And I think that when they traded Kalichi Osemele, it kept Jonathan Hankins, the defensive lineman. They really wanted. They disappointed some teams by keeping him. And then watch for this one. I think their focus here is re-signing tight end Jared Cook.
Yeah, I agree with that one. Okay, and that's all he said. But see, he didn't elaborate on the cash flow problem. And I think sometimes it's really dangerous because it's really dangerous that a person just throws this out there without some structure, all right? And they would have done better by quoting me. And they would have done better by calling me and asking me to explain what that is. But that just shows you how the media is today. You know, it's just sloppy. So do me a favor. Go to the big lead, go to Twitter and say, hey, look, Zenny's got the details regarding the cash flow issue. Why don't you quote him, Zenny62? Do that, okay? Unless, of course, you happen to represent the big lead yourself and just wanted me to talk about you for my show, all right? But I don't know. But my point is, go and do that, okay? Because the other media types out there don't have the training and focus regarding public finance and regarding real estate investment analysis that I do, because I've done it for clients and I still continue to do it to this day. So turn to me, you know. So there you go. All right, now Arcade asked me an interesting question. I believe that's LIBOR, but hold on a second. Let me get back to that, all right? Okay. We've got Morton says the team has no real revenue stream from a stadium deal. He did? Let me see that, Mr. Ramos. Let me find the rest of that, all right? See here. Chris Mortensen. All right, Chris. Because sometimes I wonder, let's see here. That's Big Lead report. Raiders like the cash. That's NBC Sports. And Raiders out. Yard Barker. Clutch points. I'm trying to find the actual ESPN article. And let's see here. Chris. ESPN Raiders. There. Bear with me folks, okay? NFL rumors, Bleacher Report, Yard Barker. Oh, this is how bad news. This is how, when I say bad, this is also how fake news travels, right? It's the sewing circle. Seriously, it's the sewing circle. All right, hold on a second. Chris Mortensen. And all right, Raiders, ESPN.com. Those are lists. All right, Mort Report, cash flow. I can't find that specific one. I see quotes from it. Maybe if Pro Football Talk has the direct link to it. But if they're just throwing up the video, it's kind of like, eh. And here, okay, he's just got tweet. All right, and they're just showing a video. So that's it. What I'm looking for is a cash report, but where this whole stadium issue, I'm not finding that. So what you're throwing in there regarding the stadium, I don't see. Okay, so I'm not going to entertain that comment anymore because I can't see him actually saying it. All right. All right. So my point is this. I'm not going to run around there because I know the Raiders' revenue situation better than they do. So listen to me. All right. Fuck Bleacher Report. Listen to me. All right. Here is the situation. All right. Hold on a second. Here's the situation. In fact, let me get it by showing you a spreadsheet since a lot of you haven't been here before. And I think this will put the matter to rest regarding where the Raiders are. Okay. Really are. Because unlike people who talk, I have a spreadsheet. Actually, I have several. Let's see here. Raiders spreadsheet. All right, there. Okay. Waiting for that. Searching all files. Raiders dot XLS. Come on. Dot XLS. Right now, while I'm waiting for that, let me explain that something. That the Raiders, here we go. All right. Raiders Las Vegas Stadium spreadsheet. Open that one up. And then I'll give you a full picture of where the Raiders are at, or in terms of full projections, okay? The Raiders have had 40 years of an average net operating income of about $19 million. They should do better than that this year. They don't have the dead money contract problems they did in the past, the Raiders. They have a healthier salary cap than they ever have before. Now, I'm not going to reverse myself and say, hey, look, these guys are really, really rich right now. But in the future, they will be. And if you go back to dead money contract strategy, dead money contract is where you're basically saying, I'm going to spread out my payments. And that's where they're going to take, they could take their franchise money, use that for the, not franchise money, Zenny, come on. They could take their salary cap money, that amount they have, that gap, that cash they have to spend, use part of that for the upfront payment, and spread the rest out. Okay, now, or spread out as much of it as possible. So, but with respect to the stadium and how it impacts the Raiders' bottom line, here is the only place you're going to see, and you will ever see, unless the media gets its act together, which it won't, you will ever see a clear rundown of how the Raiders' bottom line is impacted by Las Vegas Stadium. Here. This is a spreadsheet that I've had since March 19th of 2017. I've consistently updated. Last time I did it was about a month ago, I believe it was. At any rate, all right. Construction cost. Remember, that's total construction cost. All right. That is for the shell. All right. That's the shell. That's the guaranteed max. That's the guaranteed max price. Okay. Land infrastructure, on-site costs. Practice facility, and then contingency gets us to $2 billion. All right. Then we have off-site transportation, infrastructure costs. That's estimated. This is non-transportation infrastructure costs, parking per Clark County. You know, those satellite parking that is represented here. Okay. So it's total stadium development cost, $2.25 billion. That's not including the relocation fee, which is spread out over 10 years, okay? So total project cost, $2,620,000, $2 billion, sorry. Come on, Zany, $2,620,000. Now, those are costs. Funding sources. Raiders team investment, that's what they got from the NFL.
I'm gonna do my winner first.
Okay.
My winner first.
Yeah.
My winner.
Turn that down, all right? And then Raiders team investment, $750 million really comes from the Clark. The Raiders team investment's $500 million. All right, that is the $100 million they got from the NFL, the $200 million loan, the $250 for PSL. So that's Raider team investment, $500 million. Public investment, that's $750 million. Technically, it's actually less than that because they don't have all of that in. Okay? Hey, Frank Sapowitz is on Twitter. Private investment, B of A commercial loan. That's $850 million. And by the way, someone asked about the interest rate. That's LIBOR. That's the London Interbank rate, okay? Additional private public investment. That's the big wild card. That's the zero. All right? That's the zero. Okay? Total funding sources. Here, okay? So, team, all right? So the question is, where do you fit in this? And what does this actually equal? Well, it's called sponsorships. That's what it's called. So, if I were to get $600 million in sponsorships, right? Let's change that to, let's change that to 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay, boom. All right. Now this ought to, it says B23, right? B23 minus B16, just a total project cost, all right? And set that as 0. 520 million. Then put that back. Undo input, okay. There, that's 600 million. So that would be, so there'll be 520 million short. Of course, we could set it at 0 and see what the impact would be. That's not adjusting. That should adjust, and it's not adjusting. So let's put it this, let's do this. It's funny how these things don't quite work on cue, isn't it? There it is. All right, 600, let's add this. And then let's add that. Oops, excuse me. Undo insert. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Boom. There. Let's add another 0 here. Like so. There. All right. And let's figure out why this is not updating. B23. Should be it should be B23 minus B16 equals B23 here, B23 minus B16 equals, interesting, coming in there, this still that. So what that means quite simply is this: 600 million is not enough. So you would need, still not updating. It's still not updating, which means I have a calculation glitch. Because that is not updating, because that should be updating. And if it's not, oh, well, I see what the hell is going on. This is here, there, sum that. There it is. Okay, that's what's happening. Bonehead. All right, now let's just take this up, tell you about myself. All right, now, this is it. Okay, so if the Raiders received $600 million in sponsorships, which is this additional private investment, okay, that would take them just $80 million over, all right? The total NFL stadium project net operating income would be that. All right? So, okay. So these are the totals. Total event revenues, total non-event revenues, total stadium revenue. Now, this is the debt service, capital expenditure, total debt service and capital, all right? Look at this. These were the estimates for total. This is from the SNTIC. Total annual event revenue here, total non-event revenue, which is sponsorships here. All right? So this is what was projected. Only $309 million in sponsorships. They need 4 times that roughly. Well, twice that roughly, all right? Total stadium revenue here. This was as originally projected, which gave them this deficit, all right? So in order to be healthy, what the Raiders need, at the minimum, are $600 million in sponsorships, all right? Now, let's say right now they're getting about between Caesars and Cox, all right? Let's say that they're at $200 million. Okay? Add another zero there, all right? There, okay? So, right now they're still $320 million back. All right? But if they believe that they're going to get another $320 million more in sponsorships, then in total they're sitting really pretty. Now, here's the other revenue piece that isn't included here, and that is quite simply luxury box revenues. Now, here's the other aspect to consider, because luxury box revenues are not here because this is more of a stadium pro forma. It's not, I didn't roll in the team part of it because luxury box monies are generally taken by the team and used for team activities like players and player purchases, okay? So I don't know where the Raiders are there. Once I have a more comfortable picture of that, I'll make a new spreadsheet that better mates the team and the stadium. But my point is this. For the future, which is starting to kick in already because they're signing up sponsorships, the Raiders are in a better cash flow position today than they were a year ago. So I would disagree with Chris Mortensen because this is a moving target. And I would say the Raiders are getting in a better position. They are in the process of getting in a better position. I will agree with him that what has given them a problem is that they don't get all of this money. And what I mean by that, this money is this, all right? The $750 million here, they didn't get all the pay-go money, so they had to cough up about $14–15 million because of the shortfall. But $14 or $15 million, considering these magnitudes of dollar sizes, I mean, come on. You can see that the Raiders are headed to an overall monetary position unlike any they've ever been in before. This, then, is the value of having a new stadium. Now, don't say this isn't achievable in Oakland. You'll end up looking really stupid. It is achievable in Oakland. These are the mathematics of having a new stadium. The Oakland Athletics will realize these same mathematics, if not better, with their new stadium that they're working to build at Howard Terminal, which will be an incredible destination. So don't even let it come out of your mouth that this is not possible in Oakland. It is possible in Oakland, including the gambling component because of the changes in the law that have just occurred over the past year, and then some coming on board toward the future. So I disagree with Chris Mortensen. I think for him to throw out that idea was really sloppy. And again, you want to talk about this, ask me. I'm delighted to speak with you about it and run through the numbers with you, and move forward. I also remind those who may not know that when I started Sports Business Simulations, I had the only online simulation of a sports organization, the Oakland Athletics, that was used in 40 colleges and college and high school classrooms, around the world. Well, technically, all in the United States and one in London, but hey, I'll take that. So, I had as my business partner, Dan Rasher, who managed the sport management program at the University of San Francisco. So we were in top schools. Also presented at the National Association of Sports Commissions and every place else. So my point is this: National Association of Sport Management Organizations, not Sports Commissions. Sorry. At any rate, point is, Mortensen is, I think, sloppy. Mortensen's point would have been correct a year ago. All right. Chris Mortensen's point would have been correct a year ago, but right now, with the Raiders building the stadium, signing sponsorships for the stadium, and the higher salary cap on top of that, this is a moving target, and it's pointing north. So I thought what he said, as brought to my attention by you all, was wrong. But you can see how. In fact, I think I'll make a blog post to that point. So say, hey, here's why the Raiders are doing better financially this year than the year before. All right. So, hey, like I said, how you doing? Let me see what comments I missed since then. All right, quite a bit. Let's see here. Oh, okay, I got that one. Let's see here. M-Byte, they have no clue what. All right. And Mr. Ramos says Davis has a net worth of only $250 million, which pales in comparison to the majority of NFL owners. Most owners were billionaires before they purchased an NFL franchise, which allows them to have more. But Ramos, here's the problem, okay? Here's why I have to really correct you on something. Just like Chris Mortensen, you are looking at this. Maybe you are Chris Mortensen, but you are looking at this as static, as opposed to dynamic. Static is something that well, it never changes. Like, for example, this bottle of water, okay? But what does change is the volume of water in the bottle. So the bottle structure doesn't change. That's static. But what's dynamic is this. It's changing, okay? And so you're looking at this the wrong way. You're looking at the static. You're looking at the bottle, but you're not looking at the water and where the water flows, all right? So that's intellectually sloppy, all right? And it's judgmental. So you make the statement from the perspective of wanting to be judgmental. Oh, he's poor. He doesn't have this. That's wrong, all right? The man is in the middle of building a new stadium. That in and of itself means he's going to have a different financial future. Ostensibly better, okay? And he will have around him for the first time, he hasn't had it before, an infrastructure of revenues coming in that's under his control, directly and indirectly, all right? And to a great amount, okay? So let me put it this way. You would be, how do I say this? You might want to think Mark Davis is a poor owner, but you should do so at your peril. All right? The man is in the middle of building a 14-room house in Las Vegas for a reason. So, because he's going to be really, really rich when all is said and done. All right? It's funny how things change, I mean, look, $250 million, $25 million is really rich, or really, really rich. But it's funny how we've been so bombarded with what billionaires and the multi-billionaires and everything else, all right? Like, hi, okay? Boom. So my point is, okay? So my point is that this is a changing picture. All right. So now we've got Invite says on the trade for Trent Brown. What do you want to know? Mr. Ramos, cash on hand for things like signing bonuses, facilities. Yeah, but you're confusing his personal wealth with the Raiders' team wealth. Okay, so you're throwing this stuff out without thinking about it. All right, there's two things here. Let me tell you something. No owner worth their salt is going to spend their own money on a stadium. They have it as collateral. But if you take a look at what Stan Kroenke is building, that's not really his money. I tried to explain this to this guy on a radio show. He was yelling at me, and I was saying, you don't know what you're talking about, and I hung up on him. No owner of any team spends their money on that stadium. I'm talking about professional level. No owner does that. You use it as collateral for a loan, and you make sure the stadium is financially designed to pay off the loan. Okay, all right. So that's what you do. Look, use me. For those of you who are quoting all these other people, use me as your intellectual battery lamp. So just say Zinni said. Write this on Twitter. Zinni said this. Zinni said that. Zinni said, okay? You see my point? Because you all are coming here, you're mentioning them, so go to them and mention me. Make them deal with me. So, now, Cavalera says if it doesn't work, I believe the NFL will force the Raiders to play in Santa Clara. I don't know where that's coming from, and I disagree. Invite trade, you say all of this, and you mean the lease issue? I have no idea. Jordan Ulansky says, I think they can sign Le'Veon Bell and bring back Marshawn Lynch, Thunder, and Lightning. Hey, John, how you doing? Taste813 writes, we can share in Mark Davis' wealth. Many gambling and statistical and analytic companies are publicly traded. Look at the stats group working with the NBA. Hey, it's a great point. Invite says, we still need to fill that position, and the Raiders are better as ever, and we should convince and entice Charles Woodson to join and follow suit. Schizo says, Tevin Coleman would be a nice addition for us. I agree. Invite says, Gruden would love Bell in a Raiders uniform. Who wouldn't? Muhammad Ahmad says, Jerry Jones will force Davis to sell the team. I keep hearing that. But I think Davis wants to sell the team anyway. All right. Why would it be to Mark Davis' advantage to sell the team now before the revenue gathering instruments are in place that we're talking about, before this stadium is completed? Why? You know? My point is, let me make this really simple. It's okay to deal with a short-term dip for long-term gain. There's still a huge political problem in the fact that stadium bond issue is not going to be paid for by the hotel tax. The only way that changes is if the hotel tax rate is increased. Right now it's at 88/100ths of 1%. Las Vegas visitation rates, even with the Raiders, are not going to like all of a sudden jump through the roof again. Las Vegas is headed to a future where it becomes, unfortunately, a lot like just any other city. That's a bad thing. Las Vegas needs the Sin City edge. Needs to regain it. Cowboy Rush asked, do you think a major Fortune 500 company will buy the naming rights for the Vegas stadium? Well, let me ask you, what is a Fortune 500 company these days? You know, because you have, what is it? What is a Fortune 500 company? I mean, the question is, which Fortune 500 company? All right, what's the list? What does the annual list look like? Let's see. Let's see who made the list for 2018. I'm waiting for this page to open, and it's slow to open. But I ask because with so much money sloshing around the world, the real question you have to ask is who's most likely to want to put their name on a stadium? That's the question you have to ask, okay? And because, you know, obviously the answers are, well, Mercedes-Benz, AT&T. All right, so right now, in terms of the top 10, you have Walmart, ExxonMobil, Berkshire Hathaway, Apple, which really should have its name on the Coliseum. To not have Apple involved in the redevelopment of the Oakland Coliseum is criminal. United Health Group, McKesson, CVS Health, Amazon, AT&T, General Motors. I think, you know, the whole issue of gambling, I think, is a big stopper for some corporations. I really do. I think that at some point, I mean, you have all this activation, but with that kind of visibility, what company, and that's the real question, what company wants to tie its name to a football palace of that size and exposure in Sin City? Now, you would say, well, T-Mobile did it. But just because T-Mobile did it doesn't automatically mean another company wants to do it. I'm just asking the question, okay? I'm asking the question. And not only that, the other question is this. Do they want to do it for $600 million? Okay? That's the other question. Do they want to do it for $600 million? Because the Raiders have been asking $600 million for naming rights alone. Do they want to do it for that? Is it worth $600 million? My belief, okay, $400 million, yeah. $500 million, maybe. $600 million, If the Raiders land $600 million, somebody gave up something, okay? I'm just, all right? Understand? Okay? Inbites making some great points. We still need to fill that position. The Raiders are better than ever. Got that one. Got that one. Invite says loans exist. Muhammad says Reggie's goal was to save for Mack and Cooper contract. Yeah, and I think that he did, but see, here's the problem. Again, I tried to explain this to Steve Macy as much as I can on Twitter, which I hate, but you cannot look at this, what? Statically. You have to look at it as what? Dynamically. The water level is always changing. Translation. Last year's salary cap level and financial level are not for this year. You have to put in a little brain work, use the internet, find out where they were. A lot of you don't do that. I mean, think about just this episode. You all have quoted to me what other people have said, but not one of you has shown me that you went back and did your own homework to find out if something was true. To try, find the numbers, crunch the numbers, throw out some like, oh, hey, there's a 10% difference here. Why? Why do you spend so much time quoting people, and even me? Just do your own homework. I feel like Bud Fox in Wall Street. Do your own homework, Marv. Do some homework. That way you're not snowed by what somebody says, even if it's me. And you know what? If you do your homework and you bring to me some data, oh, then we have fun. I love that because it means you're thinking. It means that we have, but more than the thinking, it means that we have data we can crunch and talk about, all right? Mr. Ramos says, we did our own homework and I have my own channel. Great. Hey, if you did your own homework, you had your channel, I'd sub to you, man. I'd have you on. We have a show. We have a segment. Fine. Nothing wrong with that. I got nothing. Hey, I would have nothing but love for you. Already do. My point is, it enriches when you do that. It helps us all understand better. Because the people that you're quoting, they're not paid to be right. They're paid to entertain you. They're paid to say something that gets you stirred up, that makes you search around and say, oh, so-and-so said this, all right? Now, I could do that sort of thing. I could, you know, all right? And as Mr. Ramos, and I respect that, he's a full-time father and husband. His point is, hey, man, I don't have so much time to do all that stuff. So I come to you, Zinni. Got it. Got it. I get it. I get that. I get that. So let's do it. Let's do this. Tell those other dudes, hey, just even write in the comments, hey, Zinni said the Raiders don't have a cash flow problem like they did because of the sponsorship money they have coming in for the stadium. Just put that out there, all right? Tell them it's the relative tell them the relative numbers are, you know, better, okay? All right. So, anybody says, maybe we can cut players that we longer need, but please keep Richard. He's awesome. Pedro Gallardo says, I can't believe we got Antonio Brown for a third and a fifth while we got a first for Cooper. Stealing from the Cowboys and Steelers feels good. Invite says, Banks or other coaching is a venture. Sean Watson, okay. Lice said, how you doing? He says, if Beast Mode comes back, then running backs are the least of my worries for free agency. Sean Watson adds, hey, what are the chances of Raiders of getting Bell from the Steelers? And if they do still keep Marshawn, I'd rather keep Marshawn. I think the chances are better than ever of that scenario working out now or happening. I'm not saying it will, but I'm saying that the climate is there for that to occur if the Raiders decide that's the direction they want to go. Skitson says the shell looks like a bank account. Rick Worth says, I thought Mark needed money for Vegas Stadium shortfalls. Rick, you missed my point. Okay? And I'm going to go back to the spreadsheet to make it, all right? The Vegas Stadium shortfall, because remember I left out luxury suite revenues. The Vegas Stadium shortfall can be covered in sponsorships. Okay? So again, look at this, and I want you to pay attention, Rick Worth, you're still hanging around. Additional private-public investment. Let's say it's at $200 million here, okay? But let's say that they get in sponsorships 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 9. All right, hit that 6. All right, there. All right. Let's say they get $600 million, so they're $80 million up. That does help. Look at that. Total NFL project net operating income. That does help with funding sources. Okay? All right. That's a good idea, Joseph Calhoun. All right. Now, what this is I took the original Southern Nevada Tourism Infrastructure Committee consulting numbers, and I extrapolated them out, and I fit them in to the discussion regarding what the stadium would like fiscally. The trouble is that their total sponsorships were $309 million. All right. By contrast, what I have here is total $600 million. Now let's park that number into here and see what we get. Okay. Let's do that real quick. See what that looks like. 309. All right. Boom. There would still be $211 million in the hole there, all right? So my point is, in terms of total cash flows, this is what the Raiders are staring at. If they only get $309 million, they're staring at being $200 million in the hole, okay? Now, they're not, now do they have, are they in a position where they could have a cash flow problem with respect to the stadium? Yes, but keep this in mind. In terms of the overall amount of money the Raiders are pulling in for stadium operations versus what it costs to sign a Le'Veon Bell or any of the other players, the Raiders are in a better position to still afford those players. It does not, all right? They have more money coming in than they've ever had before. So this is what Chris Mortensen didn't even factor in, and I don't think anyone's ever explained it to him. And when they heard the whole issue regarding stadium cash flows, I'll bet you they got that from me. That's a great talking point. Let's not quote him, but let's just say it. Again, when I say something, I'm representing a picture that's dynamic. They talk as if it's static. It's always changing. I mean, how can you not have that situation? What does it mean? What does it mean when you say you're building a stadium? It means you're in the process of what? Change. It's not static. All right. So, so there you go, Rick Worth. There's the answer to your question. And Joseph Turner says, does Derek Carr need to restructure his contract so the Raiders can sign Bell? No. 831 Scott, will money from, I can tell you straight out, he does not need to do that. Something else, we didn't know last year what the salary cap was going to look like. There were some hints, but now we do. And a lot of teams are able to breathe a great sigh of relief. And so you're seeing a lot of great deals flying around, especially by the Raiders, which also have new sponsorship monies coming in, okay? Now, well, money from private events such as concerts. Oh, and I'm not saying that the Raiders are spending it wisely. The Raiders could turn around and start spending stuff like drunken sailors and have a real problem. Some would argue that Mark Davis is already spending like a drunken sailor, but that's another point, all right? Now, 831 Scott says, will money from private events such as concerts at the Las Vegas Stadium go toward the debt the Raiders owe? No, it will not. The Raiders... wait a minute. Let me back way up here. The debt the Raiders owe is to Bank of America. So that the answer to that question is yes. But the money, if you're going to calculate this out, you have to remember that every event has its own expenses. So let me make this easy for you. The stadium operators are only going to retain about 11% of the revenue from any event on the average. All right. Don't think that because you have that big concert there that the stadium gets all that money. No, because the promoter of the concert, the producer of the concert, gets the lion's share of that. The only time that would be true is if the Raiders started the business of producing their own events, and they get to keep more of it. You still have to pay people to do it, right? See, that's the thing. When you make, as you saw in my spreadsheet, when you make a spreadsheet with revenues, don't forget the expenses. A lot of people do that. A lot of fans do that. They just put the money up there, right? Oh, they're making all this money, but they won't bother to figure out what the expense part of the ledger looks like. Do both. Do both, okay? Do both. This is fun stuff. Because I'm telling you, when you get through the process of putting these numbers together, you will see the business of sport entirely differently than you do right now. And I'm saying to you this, it will be a lot more fun to you. Really will. So, like Sim City for sports, right? All right. So, and Joseph Amenderis says, speaking on the inaccuracy of media, have you heard Colin Cowherd? He's a Raider hater. He bashed us for signing AB, made fun of us for signing the offensive tackle from New England. Yeah, and what did he do in the process? He got you so stirred up, you had me mentioning him here. Here's the punishment. Go to his site, go to his Twitter account, and mention me. Do it right now, please. Oh, it says bring King Crab back. Mr. Ramos says, we did our own homework. I got that one. Okay, so let's see here. Moving along. Let's see here. Okay. And Mr. Ramos says, give me your number and I'll forward it to Mr. Mortensen. Hey, Mr. Ramos, all you have to do is go, my phone number is right there. If you go to Oakland News Now, contact, it's all there. Give it to him. Sean says, why not trade OBJ as well? Okay. Joseph says, do you think we can trade Donald Penn to a team like Houston or cut him? I still think Donald Penn has gotten better as a player because of the existence of competition. And I think that this year, I like having him as a backup. I like having him as a player coach on the field. I want to see Donald Penn continuing his role as a Raider, and at a time we were bringing in younger Raider offensive line people. I'm not, you know, the time where the Raiders should have had Cam Robinson has come and gone. They got Colton Miller instead. I can't reverse time and say, hey, Reggie, don't do that. But and that was the time that I think Donald Penn, I think it would have been an even better situation with Donald Penn and Cam Robinson than they are right now. But reality says, to me, keep Penn around. He's a coach. He's got no point where he's a coach on the field. And I think the system needs to reflect his knowledge. And yeah, I said it just like that. Now, let's see here. I believe I've got everybody. Oh, Arcade says, I looked it up and the Falcons are getting $900 million in sponsorships. What is that stadium like? Actually, $1 billion. In fact, yeah, they got $1 billion in sponsorships. And that's, and you asked me what that stadium looks like, and I'm glad you asked the question, because the Bank of America loan that the Raiders received is exactly the same one. I was told this by none other than the Bank of America banker Elliott McCabe. It's exactly the same one that was used for the Falcons. Okay, no different. $850 million for both. I think the payoff run is 5 years, but they're the same. Okay. And as McCabe told me when we talked in Las Vegas during CES, they're location agnostic. They don't care where the location is. All right. Welcome to Zunny62. They don't care where, they being Bank of America doesn't care. It's the NFL. They have a fantastic relationship with the league. Bank of America is not concerned with whether or not the stadium is in Oakland, Las Vegas, or Rancho Cucamonga. Okay. So the deal is the deal. The loan is the loan. All right. But the way this deal is structured, Bank of America, in effect, becomes the landlord for the Raiders because the Raiders don't have rent. The loan is the rent. So that helps answer the question someone else asked me. Hey, they asked, will the events the Raiders have as Stadco, that revenue help pay for the Bank of America loan? The answer is, you betcha. To quote Sarah Palin. I'd love to get Sarah Palin on this show. I'm not politically aligned with her, but I've always just felt like the Republican Party owed her something. At any rate, Joseph Turner says, you bring up good points. Thank you for educating us. Shut those sports analysts up. Their job is to give us real news, not fake news. But they give you they feel like their job is to just say stuff to make you talk about what they say. And I'm not saying they don't believe what they're saying at the time they say it, but the point is to get you stirred up so that you come back for more. I will never forget this line out the door of people when the Warriors first came to have a party at Lake Chalet for the first finals that the Warriors had been in some time. That was 2015. And I was part of that early morning contingent to see First Take. And the majority of people in there, I would say, why are you here? And they would talk to me about how much they hated either Stephen A. Smith or Skip Bayless. I'm like, really? I mean, if you think about it logically, right? You wouldn't let them in the building. Okay? It's like, why do they hate them? Okay? But no, it's like a love-hate thing. That's weird. I think some people have that with me. I'm just still not quite used to the whole deal. But anyway, whatever. Marquise says LeVeon would be a good fit. Marquise Carr says we should put in Penn as a guard. And John Collins says, what do you think of the two players Raiders signed today? And Joseph Turner asks, do you think the Raiders are trying to build a super team like Golden State? No, because the Raiders, I think any kind of super team that you build has to start with your quarterback. And the Raiders have an established quarterback. As I look at it, if I'm starting a super team, I would, if I were of a mind to do so, frankly, I would have a whole new system. I would not run what John is running. I would, if I were John, I would sit down and I would from scratch pin my own system. And I would include the basic tenets of the Bill Walsh offense, but I would design a 100 to 200 play playbook by hand, hand it over to somebody to just, graphically draw out. And then I would design it with a quarterback in mind that I wanted in terms of physical tools, personality, that sort of thing, a template, right? And then have some room for different types of quarterbacks, right? And I would go forward and I would structure an entire team around that. Right? You don't get that now. You don't get the closest we've ever had to that was Bill Walsh and Tom Landry. And really more Tom Landry than Bill Walsh, because Bill Walsh just had the offense side, but Landry designed innovative concepts on both offense and defense, okay? I mean, they were his from scratch, all right? And just as Walsh on offense were his from scratch. So my point is, it's time for new approaches. Now, someone would say, what about the air raid? To me, the air raid isn't so much new as it is a combination of approaches that at one point sort of went out of favor because of the fact that one could control the ball with a passing game until someone else realized, hey, I could take Bill Walsh's concepts, which are really based more on footwork and timing, and I can install those into an air raid concept and come out with a better system, right? Because an air raid concept was more about formations and all the things that Sid Gilman talked about as the Chargers coach. Among them, we were going to use the entire width of the field, and then our running game was not going to come into our passing game and so on, all right? So that's how I would do it. Because then you can really control all the way down to the nub exactly what it is you want your team to do and what it should look like. So there you go. So from that perspective, I don't think the Raiders are trying to build a super team. I think they're trying to build a better team that would land them a Super Bowl trophy. 831 Scott says, after the Raiders leave, what do you think Oakland's chances are of getting an NFL team? I don't see it as ever happening. I do. Look, there's one operative term. There's one word in all this you cannot forget. Try. If you don't try, you won't get it. But if you try, you do. You don't know. Look, this is Mayor Schaaf's last term. Mayor Schaaf has said to me, who's my god sister, hey, look, if they call me, I'll talk to him, talking about the Raiders. She's not closed. Just show her the respect you would do. Fine. The Bay Area is a healthy and huge market. However, I think the NFL's biggest problem isn't whether or not it's in Oakland. The NFL's biggest problem is this. Under the large and increasing rate of underemployment in the United States. I mean, I'd love to have you all in one room and have you raise a hand. In fact, let me ask you right here, by just a yes. How many of you use rideshare to make money? Or how many of you make money online in some kind of way? Just by a Y. Just a Y, okay? Either or you're an Uber driver or you're a Lyft driver or something like that. Okay? Just by a show of that, if you're comfortable doing that sort of thing. Well, many of you aren't using your real name, so why not, right? Let me see, because there's 56 of you. I'd like to see what the response would be, all right? And I asked that for a particular reason. At any rate, there's John, there's one. Sean, I know of one other person that says that they are. And there's another one. And so John Collins says, so the JPA agenda for Friday that comes out tomorrow morning will give us a better idea if we have a lease deal. Yeah, if it's on the agenda, I'm told, then we have a deal, all right? But my point is that with all of you working for it, I'm sure there are many more that don't bother to hit the Y button, but my point is that our underemployment rate, in other words, the amount of money that you're paid relative to your experience and education is so high that it impacts your ability to afford tickets to a game or to enjoy a game. Jerry Jones said, hey, look, only 7% of our revenue comes from ticket expenditures. But what happens if you start choking fans out of seeing the game? Now, Jerry Jones' response is, hey, look, they're watching television, and even though television viewership may be on the decline because more and more people are using, small screen devices like this one, right? Like my iPhone. The rate of decline for us is smaller than the average for everybody else, so we still rule. But how long will that last? Okay. How long will that last? When you have an overall picture where the arrow points like that, you got a problem. Because the question is the arrow pointing like this or is it pointing like this? Ideally, you want an arrow pointing like that, but nobody is seeing this in terms of television. Everybody's looking at that. That's not good. That's not good at all. And the biggest problem as I see it is that Netflix is the biggest player out there, and Netflix is not showing a single NFL game. And there's a reason for that, which I don't have the answer to, and I'd love to find out. If you find out something, give me the source. Don't just put it out here, because I'm not going to say it. That is the question of the day. Because when you have Netflix as the biggest media player, and they are not paying into the NFL and showing NFL games, in other words, letting the NFL into the kingdom of subscribers, thereby assuring a healthy NFL future beyond where it is today, thereby, increasing the possibility that the arrow points more like that, right? Hey, it's an issue, all right? Yes, and the Raiders did sign LaMarcus Joyner for the defense. I thought it was a great sign. All right. It's 2:23 in the morning, folks, and I need to sign off. This has been another great, healthy conversation, but I want all of you. There's 57 of you watching this right now. 58. So you just walked on in. Thank you. 58 people only got 6 thumbs up. Oh, come on. Give me better than that. Good night. Good night, Glenda. Thank you. But my point is, I'm gonna end with a positive note. The financial future for the Raiders is positive. It's better than it was last year. The idea that the Raiders have an overall cash flow problem relative to where they were last year is not the case. However, they are perched on a precarious platform with respect to the stadium. The main number one question isn't that they can sign up sponsors? They can. The question is, can they reach the $1 billion mark set by the Atlanta Falcons and Mercedes-Benz Dome? That is the question. If the Raiders cannot generate at least $600 million in sponsorships, they have a problem. Right now, they're headed in the right direction. But the question is, this is what everybody like Chris Mortensen has to keep in their mind. Can the Raiders hit $600 million at least? If they can't, then you start talking about a cash flow problem. But right now, where the Raiders' cash flow problem came from last year is the fact that Southern Nevada Tourism and Infrastructure Committee consultants overestimated the amount of money that would come to the Raiders in terms of pay-go money over a 2-year period from the stadium hotel tax. Why? Because the hotel tax rate was first 88% of 1%, which looks like 88, then 100, then 1, right? Okay? First problem, should have been 1%. Should have been 1%. And then the second problem, Las Vegas visitation rates were declining and had nothing to do with the October shooting. No. October 1 wasn't the reason. It was a structural change because of Las Vegas trying to gouge everybody, people getting tired of being gouged and saying, hey, look, I can go down the street and gamble. I don't have to fly to Las Vegas. On the average, there's a casino within an hour's drive of every major American city and town. That's where we are today. And that hurts Las Vegas, okay? So that dynamic was already in play by the time the horrible events of 1 October took place. And they just simply continued until we got to this year where they seem to have stabilized. I'm not quite convinced. We'll see. Every time you hear about a state legalizing gambling, that's another death knell to the idea of Las Vegas as Sin City. That is a change everyone should be very concerned with who loves Las Vegas. All right, good night, everybody. I'll see you. Thank you. Thank you all. Thank you. Thanks, everybody. See you tomorrow. Thank you. See you. Remember, tell those dudes to follow me.